My father crossed an unspoken boundary, and I didn't react the way anyone expected. I kissed my father-in-law 3 weeks ago, and I still can't wash the taste of regret out of my mouth. Not my dad. My husband's father. The man who walked me down the practice aisle at our wedding rehearsal because he said I was the daughter he never had. The man who held our son for the first time while tears ran down his face. The man I destroyed my entire life for in approximately 7 minutes on his back patio while my husband was inside putting our kids to bed. I need to write this down because nobody believes my version anymore. Not my friends. Not my family. Definitely not Marcus, my husband of 8 years. But I need someone to understand how it happened, even if that someone is just strangers on the internet who will rightfully call me every name I deserve. It started so innocently. That's what I keep telling myself, though I know now there's no such thing as innocent when you're a married woman letting another man's attention fill the gaps your husband supposedly left. David, my father-in-law, always had this way of really seeing me. When I talk about my photography dreams, he'd lean in and ask questions. Real questions, not the polite kind Marcus would throw out while scrolling his phone. When I'd mention feeling invisible as a stay-at-home mom, David would tell me I was remarkable, that raising Chloe and Mason was the most important work in the world. Marcus worked long hours at the firm. 70, 80-hour weeks during busy season. I understood, I really did, but understanding doesn't keep you warm at night. It doesn't stop you from feeling like a ghost in your own home, a milk dispensing, laundry folding appliance with no thoughts worth hearing. My Instagram feed was full of women my age traveling, starting businesses, being seen. And I was pureeing carrots and pretending I was fulfilled. David started coming over more after his wife, Patricia, got sick last year. Cancer. She beat it, thank God, but the treatment was brutal and he needed escape. He'd show up on Saturday mornings to help Marcus with yard work, then stay for lunch. Then dinner. Then he'd be there on random Tuesday afternoons when Marcus was at the office and I was home alone with the kids. That's when the texts started. Innocent at first. How's your day going? Then longer conversations about photography exhibits he thought I'd like. Articles about women reinventing themselves after motherhood. He sent me a link to a local gallery looking for submissions and told me I should apply. Marcus had never once encouraged my photography. He'd say that's nice, babe, when I mentioned it, then pivot to asking what was for dinner. I started putting on makeup before David's visits. Started wearing jeans that actually fit instead of my stained leggings. I told myself I was just trying to feel human again, but I knew. Deep down, I knew exactly what I was doing. My friend Vanessa noticed first. At book club one Thursday, after too much wine, she pulled me aside. You're glowing lately. What's going on? Nothing, I said too quickly. Just trying to take better care of myself. She studied me with those sharp eyes of hers. Good. You deserve it. Marcus has been taking you for granted for years. If someone else is making you feel appreciated, lean into it. Life's too short. I should have been horrified that she could read the situation so clearly. Instead, I felt validated. Even my friends could see that I deserved more attention than I was getting. That what I was doing, whatever it was becoming, was somehow justified. The kids started picking up on the energy. Mason, who's 5, asked me one morning why Grandpa was at our house so much. Doesn't he have his own house? Of course, baby. He just likes spending time with us. Chloe, 7 and way too observant, watched me check my phone for the 100th time one afternoon and asked, "Who are you texting, Mommy?" "Just Grandpa. He's asking what you want for your birthday." Her face scrunched up. My birthday's not for 3 months. I changed the subject quickly, but I could feel her confusion. Kids have this radar for when something's off in their home. I was failing them, and I was too caught up in my own needs to care. The night it happened, Marcus had a huge case deadline. He'd been living at the office for 2 weeks straight, coming home after the kids were asleep, gone before they woke up. I was furious at him for missing everything, for leaving me alone to handle bedtime battles and homework meltdowns and my own spiraling loneliness. When he asked if his parents could come for Sunday dinner, one last family meal before he disappeared for another week, I wanted to scream no. But I said yes because I'm supposed to be the supportive wife. Patricia couldn't make it. Something about her book club having a special speaker. So it was just David. I told myself I was making an effort for Marcus, but I spent 90 minutes getting ready. I wore the green dress Marcus bought me 2 anniversaries ago, the one I'd never worn because it felt too nice for our boring suburban life. I did my hair in loose waves. I put on the perfume David once mentioned smelling good. When David walked in and saw me, something shifted in his expression. "Wow," he said. "You look absolutely stunning." Marcus barely glanced up from his phone. "Yeah, babe, you look nice." I wanted to throw something at him. Dinner was torture. The kids were loud and messy. Marcus kept checking his phone between bites, mumbling about discovery deadlines. David and I kept making eye contact across the table, these long, loaded glances that made my stomach flip. I felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in years, and I hated myself for it. But not enough to stop. After dinner, Marcus took the kids upstairs for bath and bedtime. His Sunday night ritual, the one dad duty he never missed. David offered to help me clean up. We were alone in the kitchen. Finally. I washed dishes. He dried. Our hands kept touching in the soapy water, these little electric shocks that neither of us acknowledged. The silence was so thick I could barely breathe. "You really do look beautiful tonight," he said quietly, setting down a plate. My hand stilled in the water. Marcus didn't even notice. He's a fool. I turned to look at him. He was standing closer than I'd realized, close enough that I could smell his cologne. The same cologne he'd worn to our wedding 8 years ago. "David, we shouldn't." "Tell me to leave," he interrupted. "Tell me this is wrong and I'll walk out that door right now." I should have. God, I should have said the words. Instead, I just stood there, my heart hammering, every justification I'd been building for months rising up like a wave. Marcus doesn't appreciate me. I'm still young. I deserve to feel wanted. It's just attention. It doesn't mean anything. David stepped closer. His hand came up to my face, his thumb brushing my cheek. "You deserve so much more than what he gives you." And then he kissed me. I kissed him back. It wasn't tentative or questioning. It was desperate, hungry, like we'd both been waiting months for permission to stop pretending. His hand slid to my waist, pulling me closer. I grabbed his shirt. We stumbled toward the back patio door, still kissing, and I felt the cool evening air hit my skin as we stepped outside. The patio. Where we'd had countless family barbecues. Where Marcus had proposed to me 9 years ago. Where my children had taken their first steps. We were pressed against the siding of the house. His hands were in my hair. Mine were pulling him closer. 7 minutes. That's all it was. 7 minutes of the worst decision of my life. And then I heard the sliding door open. I jumped back from David so fast I nearly tripped. My lips were swollen. My hair was a mess. My dress was half unzipped. And there, standing in the doorway with the kitchen light behind him, was Marcus. He wasn't crying. Wasn't yelling. He just stood there, staring at us with this expression I'd never seen before. Blank. Empty. Like he was looking at strangers. "Marcus," I started, my voice breaking. "I can explain." "Dad?" he said quietly, ignoring me completely. "You're really going to stand there?" David didn't say anything. Didn't try to explain or apologize. He just looked at his son with something like shame, then looked away. Marcus's jaw tightened. He turned those dead eyes to me. "Get inside." I rushed past him, my whole body shaking. He didn't follow immediately. I could hear low, angry voices outside, Marcus and David saying things I couldn't make out. Then David left. I heard his car start, heard him drive away. Marcus came back inside and locked the patio door. He walked past me like I wasn't there, went upstairs, and I heard the guest room door close. Not slam. Just close. Quietly. Like he'd already decided I wasn't worth the energy of anger. I stood in that kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd kissed my husband's father minutes before, and felt reality crash down on me. The dress suddenly felt obscene. The makeup felt like war paint. I caught my reflection in the window and didn't recognize the woman staring back. I wanted to run upstairs, pound on the guest room door, beg Marcus to let me explain. But what could I possibly say? There was no explanation that would make this okay. No words that would undo what he'd seen. I slept on the couch that night. Didn't sleep, really. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying those 7 minutes over and over, trying to find the exact moment I could have stopped it. But there wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small moments over 6 months, every one of them a choice I made. Marcus left before dawn. I heard him moving around upstairs, heard him wake the kids and tell them Daddy had to go to work early. Chloe asked where I was. "Mommy's not feeling well," he said. His voice was flat. Mechanical. He didn't say goodbye. He took Chloe and Mason to school himself, something he never did during case weeks. When he came back an hour later, I was still on the couch. He stood in the living room doorway with his hands in his pockets. "I called a lawyer this morning," he said. "No emotion. Just facts. You need to find somewhere else to stay. I want you out by tonight." "Marcus, please, can we just talk?" "There's nothing to talk about. You kissed my father. In our home. While I was putting our children to bed, he said it like he was reading a grocery list. My lawyer will be in touch about custody arrangements. I'm keeping the house. You can take whatever clothes you need. The kids will stay with me. You think I'm letting you have them after this? Now there was emotion. Rage, cold and controlled. You don't get to pretend you're a good mother anymore. Good mothers don't fuck around with their children's grandfather. I didn't sleep with him, I said desperately. It was just a kiss. He laughed. Actually laughed, this bitter, broken sound. Just a kiss. With my father. Do you hear yourself? I didn't have an answer. You're not seeing them alone until the lawyers figure this out, he continued. My mom already knows. I called her this morning. She's disgusted. My dad's moving out of their house. Congratulations, you didn't just destroy one family. You destroyed two. Patricia knew. Sweet Patricia, who'd sent me care packages during my difficult pregnancy with Mason. Who'd held my hand during Chloe's emergency room visit last year. Who'd told me at our wedding that she'd always wanted a daughter. I'm so sorry, I whispered. No, you're not. Not yet. But you will be. He left. Went to work or to his parents' house or anywhere that wasn't near me. I sat on that couch until noon, then I started packing. I texted Vanessa asking if I could stay with her for a few days. She didn't respond. I called my mom. Told her I needed help. She asked what happened and I broke down, told her everything. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Mom? I need to think about this, she said quietly. You need to understand, this is not something I can just overlook. What you did, her voice cracked. I'll call you back. She didn't call back that day. Or the next. By 6 p.m., I had 2 suitcases packed. Marcus came home with the kids. Chloe took one look at my suitcases and her face crumpled. Where are you going? I knelt down. Mommy needs to stay somewhere else for a little while. Why? Marcus answered before I could. Because Mommy made some bad choices and we need space to figure things out. Chloe started crying. Mason, not understanding but sensing his sister's distress, started crying too. I tried to hug them but Marcus physically stepped between us. Say goodbye, he said. Quickly. I hugged them over his objection. Chloe clung to me. Did you do something really bad, Mommy? I couldn't answer. Just held her and cried. Marcus pulled them away gently. That's enough. I walked out of my house, loaded my suitcases into my car, and drove to a motel on the highway. The cheapest one I could find because I'd left my marriage with nothing but some clothes and a credit card that Marcus would probably cancel. I sat in that motel room with its cigarette-stained walls and broken TV remote, and I finally let myself think about what I'd done. Really think about it. Not with justifications or excuses, but with brutal honesty. I'd kissed my husband's father. Not a stranger. Not a coworker. My father-in-law. The grandfather of my children. I'd crossed the most unforgivable boundary that exists in a family, and I'd done it because I felt lonely. Because I wanted attention. Because I'd convinced myself I deserved it. And in 7 minutes, I'd lost everything? My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa, finally. I heard what happened. I can't be around someone who would do that. Please don't contact me again. Then another text, from my sister. Mom told me. I don't even know what to say to you. How could you? Then nothing. Silence. The kind of silence that means you've been cut off. Erased. I lay on that scratchy motel bedspread and stared at the water-stained ceiling, and I realized with perfect, horrible clarity, this was just the beginning. The first week, I convinced myself it could be fixed. I sent Marcus long texts explaining, apologizing, begging. He read none of them. I could see he'd opened them, but he never responded. I called 23 times in 3 days. He answered once, just to tell me his lawyer would be contacting me, then hung up. When I showed up at the house to see the kids, he'd already changed the locks. I stood on my own porch, rang my own doorbell, and watched through the window as Chloe ran toward the door and Marcus caught her, shook his head, carried her away from me. She was crying. I could hear her through the door. I want Mommy. Marcus's voice, firm but gentle, not right now, sweetheart. I pounded on the door until the neighbors came out. Mrs. Chen from next door, who used to bring us homemade dumplings, looked at me like I was a stranger. You need to leave, honey. Marcus told us what happened. You can't just show up here. They're my children, I said. He can't keep them from me. He has a restraining order. Temporary, until the custody hearing. The police are already on their way. I left before the cops arrived. Drove back to the motel and threw up in the bathroom. A restraining order. Like I was dangerous. Like I was someone my own children needed to be protected from. My lawyer, some overworked public defender because I couldn't afford anyone better, laid it up plainly in our first meeting. You're not going to get 50-50 custody. Probably not even close. The optics here are terrible. You had an affair with your children's grandfather. It wasn't an affair. It was one kiss. She gave me this tired look, like she'd heard every excuse 1,000 times. It doesn't matter. You had a romantic encounter with a family member in the marital home while your husband cared for your children upstairs. No judge is going to look at that favorably. Best case scenario, you get supervised visitation. Supervised? They're my babies. I would never hurt them. It's not about physical harm. It's about judgment. You demonstrated catastrophically poor judgment, and now you have to prove you've changed. That takes time. Time I didn't have. The motel was draining my savings. I'd applied for 3 jobs and gotten no callbacks. When I finally landed an interview at a photography studio, it was going well until the owner Googled my name. His expression changed instantly. "I'm sorry," he said, closing my portfolio. "I don't think you're a good fit for our family-oriented business." Someone had posted about it online. I don't know who, maybe one of Marcus's friends or my former friends, but there was a whole thread on a local Facebook group. Anyone know this woman? She's trying to work with families and children, but she had an affair with her own father-in-law. Would you trust her around your kids? There were comments. So many comments. People I'd never met calling me vile, disgusting, a homewrecker. Someone found my Instagram and started commenting on old photos of me with the kids. Those poor babies. Imagine having a mother like this. I made my accounts private, but the damage was done. My phone number was posted somewhere because I started getting texts from strangers. "You're sick. I hope they take your kids forever. You deserve everything coming to you." I changed my number. It didn't matter. In a town like ours, everyone knows everyone. I couldn't go to the grocery store without people whispering. I went to Target once and saw a woman from my old book club. She looked right at me, grabbed her daughter's hand, and literally turned around and walked the other way. My mother finally called after 2 weeks. "I'm letting you stay in the apartment above the garage. But you need to know, your father and I are deeply disappointed. This is not how we raised you." The apartment was small, dusty, and cold. My parents lived in the main house 15 feet away, but they barely spoke to me. Dad couldn't even look at me. Mom would bring food sometimes, leave it at the door, knock once, and leave before I could open it. My sister came by once. Emma, who I'd been close to my whole life. She sat at the tiny kitchen table and just stared at me. "Why?" she finally asked. "Just tell me why." I felt invisible. Marcus was never home. David paid attention to me. "David? You call him by his first name?" She shook her head. "He's not some random man. He's your husband's father. He held your babies. He was at your wedding. And you threw away everything for attention?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you destroyed 2 families because you were bored. Because you couldn't handle being a normal mom with a normal life. Do you know Chloe is in therapy now? She thinks it's her fault you left." That broke me. "Can I see them? Please. Even for 5 minutes?" "Marcus won't allow it. Not until the custody evaluation is done. And honestly, I don't blame him. You're not stable right now." She left. Didn't hug me goodbye. Just left. The custody evaluation was a nightmare. A court-appointed psychologist asking me questions designed to expose every flaw. "Do you think you put your needs above your children's well-being? Can you explain your decision-making process? Have you taken responsibility for your actions?" I tried to explain. Tried to make her understand the loneliness, the way David made me feel seen, how I never intended for things to go so far. She wrote everything down with this neutral expression that somehow felt like judgment. "Do you believe you exercised good parental judgment during this period?" she asked. No. The answer was no. I'd been so wrapped up in my fantasy that I'd stopped seeing my kids clearly. I'd been impatient with them, distracted, emotionally absent. They'd needed their mother and I'd been too busy texting their grandfather to notice. "I made mistakes," I said carefully. "Kissing your father-in-law while your children slept upstairs is more than a mistake. It's a fundamental failure of judgment and boundaries. Can you see that?" I could see it now. It was all I could see. Every night in that tiny apartment, I replayed every moment. Every text I should have deleted. Every time I put on makeup for David instead of playing with my kids. Every lie I told myself about deserving more. The preliminary custody ruling came down 6 weeks after I left. Supervised visitation, 2 hours per week at a family court facility. Not in my home. Not in their home. In a sterile room with plastic toys and a social worker taking notes on everything I said and did. The first visit, Chloe wouldn't look at me. She sat in a chair across the room, arms crossed, her face set in this expression that looked exactly like Marcus when he's angry. "Baby, I'm so sorry," I said. "Mommy made a really big mistake." "You kissed Grandpa," she said flatly. "Daddy told us. That's why you had to leave." Mason, who was 5 and didn't fully understand, just looked confused. "When are you coming home?" "I don't know, buddy." "Is it because we were bad?" "No." I knelt down in front of him. "You two did nothing wrong." "Nothing. This is all Mommy's fault." Chloe finally looked at me. Grandma Patricia cried for a whole week. "Daddy said Grandpa David has to live somewhere else now. You broke our whole family." She was 7 years old and she understood what I'd done better than I had when I was doing it. I'd broken our whole family. Not just my marriage. Everyone. The social worker gave me a warning look when I started crying. "Try to keep the visit positive." "How? How do you keep something positive when your daughter hates you and your son doesn't understand why his life fell apart?" That night, I sat in my car in the court facility parking lot and called David for the first time since everything imploded. He answered on the 5th ring. "What do you want?" His voice was cold. Nothing like the warm, attentive tone he'd used for months. I needed to talk to someone who understands." "Understands what?" "That we destroyed our families?" "I understand that perfectly." "Are you and Patricia?" "She filed for divorce. Took me 36 years to build that marriage and I burned it down in 7 minutes with you. So no, we're not anything anymore." The bitterness in his voice cut through me. I thought. "You thought what?" "That I cared about you? That this meant something?" He laughed, harsh and ugly. "You were lonely and available. I was bored and stupid. That's all it was. But you said." "I said what you wanted to hear so I could feel like a man instead of a washed-up husband watching his wife survive cancer. You think you were special? You were convenient." He hung up. I sat in that parking lot and finally understood. David hadn't seen me. He'd seen an opportunity. And I'd been so desperate for validation that I convinced myself it was love or connection or anything other than what it actually was, two selfish people using each other for an ego boost, consequences be damned. My second job interview went better. A call center, data entry, mindless work for barely above minimum wage. They hired me without Googling my name. I worked 40 hours a week in a cubicle, entering numbers into spreadsheets, and it felt like punishment. Good. I deserved to be punished. But the paychecks barely covered rent on the apartment and gas. Definitely not enough for a lawyer to fight the custody arrangement. Marcus had a legal team. I had public defenders who handled 12 cases at once and could barely remember my name. The second month, I went to my scheduled visitation and Mason didn't come. Just Chloe, looking small and angry in her pink jacket. "Where's your brother?" "He said he doesn't want to see you." I looked at the social worker. "Can he do that?" "He's 5. If the child expresses a strong preference not to attend, we don't force them. It's trauma-informed practice." My 5-year-old son was traumatized by me. Traumatized enough to refuse to see his own mother. Chloe sat across from me, playing with a broken doll, ignoring my attempts at conversation. After 90 minutes of silence, she finally spoke. "Daddy's happier now," she said. Not mean. Just matter of fact. He smiles again. He plays with us more. He makes dinner and helps with homework and he's just there. He was being the parent I should have been while I was busy texting his father. "I'm glad he's happy," I managed. "Grandma Patricia came over last week. She brought cookies. She didn't ask about you at all." Chloe looked up at me. "Nobody asks about you. It's like you were never there." I was being erased? From their daily lives, from family gatherings, from the story of who they were. Marcus was already the primary parent in their minds. I was becoming a footnote. The mother who used to live with them, before she did something so awful they didn't talk about it. At Thanksgiving, I sat alone in my apartment eating a microwave dinner while my parents hosted the family dinner I wasn't invited to. Emma posted photos on Instagram, carefully cropped so I couldn't see where I used to sit at the table. My dad carving the turkey. Mom laughing. My nephew in his cute outfit. My niece showing off a drawing. No one tagged me. No one texted. Not even a thinking of you. I'd been excommunicated. I tried to call Chloe on her birthday. Marcus answered. You're not on the approved contact list. It's her birthday. I just want to tell her I love her. You should have thought about that before you kissed my father. He hung up. I sent gifts. They were returned, unopened. I sent cards. They never responded. I showed up at school pickup once, just to see them from a distance, and the principal called Marcus, who threatened to file harassment charges. I was losing them. Not in some abstract future sense. Right now, every day, they were forgetting what I sounded like, what I smelled like, how I used to read them bedtime stories in funny voices. The final custody hearing was in February. Marcus's lawyer presented evidence I didn't know existed. Screenshots of my texts with David. Testimony from neighbors who'd seen him visit constantly. A statement from Chloe's therapist about the impact on the children. My lawyer did her best, but we had nothing. No defense. No explanation that didn't sound like excuses. The judge looked at me over her glasses. Mrs. Brooks, I've reviewed the evidence in this case extensively. What you did represents a profound violation of family boundaries and a clear prioritization of your own desires over your children's well-being. I sat there, numb. I'm granting Mr. Brooks primary physical custody. You will have supervised visitation 1 Saturday per month, contingent on completion of mandatory counseling and demonstration of improved judgment. You will pay child support based on your income. Mr. Brooks will make all major decisions regarding the children's education, health care, and welfare. Do you understand? 1 Saturday per month. 4 days a year with my children. Do you understand? She repeated. Yes, Your Honor. Outside the courtroom, Marcus and his lawyer walked past me without a word. I tried to catch his eye. Wanted to see something, anything. Anger, satisfaction, regret. But his face was blank. He looked through me like I was invisible. The same way I'd felt invisible before all of this started. My monthly visit with the kids came 2 weeks later. Mason came this time, but he sat next to Chloe, holding her hand, like she was his parent now instead of me. They'd brought coloring books. We colored in silence for 90 minutes. When the social worker said time was up, Mason hugged me. Just once, quickly, like he'd been told he had to. Chloe didn't. Can I see you guys next month? I asked stupidly. Obviously I could. It was court-ordered. I guess, Chloe said. Not excited. Not sad. Just resigned. They left with a social worker to where Marcus waited in the lobby. Through the window, I watched him kneel down, hug them both, wipe tears off Chloe's face. Being the parent they needed. The parent I should have been. That night, I sat in my apartment and added up what I'd lost. My husband of 8 years. My children's daily presence. My home. My friends. My extended family. My reputation. My sister's trust. My parents' respect. Any chance at the life I'd built. All for 7 minutes with a man who'd told me I was convenient. I destroyed 2 marriages, broken Patricia's heart, made my children believe they weren't enough to keep me. I'd proven every toxic Instagram post right. I was selfish, broken, someone whose needs mattered more than her family. The worst part? I couldn't even say it happened fast, that I got swept away in a moment. I'd made 1,000 tiny choices over 6 months. Every text I sent. Every time I dressed up for his visits. Every moment I ignored my kids because I was waiting for his attention. I see Vanessa's Instagram sometimes, though she blocked me. She posts about her kids, her husband, her book club. Living the life I used to have. I wonder if she thinks about what she said, about me deserving to be appreciated, about leaning into it. Probably not. It's easier to forget the advice you gave someone when they follow it and it destroys them. I'm still working at the call center. Still living above my parents' garage. Still going to my monthly supervised visits where my children treat me like a distant relative they're obligated to tolerate. Marcus got remarried last month. I saw the photos online. Her name is Jennifer. She's younger than me, warmer in pictures. The kids look happy with her. Chloe calls her Jen. Not mom, not yet. But probably someday. I thought I wanted to be seen. Turns out being invisible was a privilege I didn't appreciate until everyone looked at me and saw exactly who I really was, someone who burned down her entire life because feeling lonely was worse than the thought of devastating everyone who loved her. There's no redemption arc here. No lessons learned that make this okay. I'll go to therapy. I'll keep showing up for my once-a-month visits. I'll work my pointless job and live in my sad apartment and watch from the outside as my children grow up without me. And every single day, for the rest of my life, I'll remember what 7 minutes cost me. If you're reading this and you think your situation is different, that your person really sees you, That you deserve better than what you have. Stop. Right now. Whatever you think you're missing isn't worth what you'll lose. Trust me. I thought I deserved more. Turns out I deserved exactly this.